Thank you very much. It's wonderful to see people from all over the world here, or journalists that have gathered together to pay tribute to a person. He's a very brave man. This is something that you're going to hear when his name is mentioned in Latin America. What a brave man. Oscar Martínez is also one of the most renowned journalists on my continent. He's one of the few who can bring us closer to finding an explanation for the violence that exists in Central America, and especially in his country, El Salvador, which is deemed to be one of the most dangerous places in the world. Oscar Martínez and his editorial team have made the online platform El Faro one of the pillars of investigative journalism throughout Latin America. Their investigations have brought the connections between the criminal gangs and the Salvadorian state into the light. And Martínez makes it very clear in his books, in his interviews, in his articles. It's not only about the gangs, it's not only about poverty, it's not only about inequality, it's not only about the consequences of a civil war that lasted 12 years, where more than 75,000 people were killed. It's not only about the militarism in the region, but also about the violence found in the very institutions of the state. Were it not for Oscar Martínez, we wouldn't know, for instance, about the secret agreement between the Bukele government and the Mara Salvatrucha, one of the most dangerous criminal organizations on the planet, ladies and gentlemen. El Faro, the online platform, has just marked its 25th anniversary, but there is no reason to celebrate, but rather a warning, as El Faro was compelled to move its administrative office from El Salvador to Costa Rica as a result of pressure from the government. Part of the Martínez family lives abroad. Several colleagues, many of whom are intimately acquainted with his work, had to leave the country due to credible threats against them. By uncovering wrongdoings and revealing the truth about their government to the people in El Salvador, Oscar Martínez has been labeled an enemy by President Bukele, who wants to prevent the public from reading about human rights abuses by his government, the hidden power of the state, the ongoing emergency rule that is under the smokescreen of security, or the arbitrary detentions and the many prisoners who are not seeing a fair trial. Just to give you an idea, with this exception rule, 1.2% of the population of El Salvador is at the moment in jail. And still, and this is something we all have to know tonight, and I would like to repeat this because it's very important, the president enjoys incredible popularity in El Salvador. And journalists like Oscar Martínez are being detested by many, as he stated in a recent interview. Bukele has managed to control violence in El Salvador, but at what cost? A question that a large part of society doesn't want to hear, and Martínez addresses. Bukele controls the media, the most important institutions, and has managed, despite constitutional ban, to be able to go for a re-election. We're talking about Central America, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends. Central America is a region where authoritarianism seems to be increasingly accepted. A large part of societies in this region will trade democracy for a quick fix of their lack of public security. There has been so much violence by gangs and organized crime in Central America that as a consequence, people more than ever want a feeling of peace, no matter whether this peace comes with or without justice. There are very few people in my continent who can give you a deep picture of how these gangs work. Oscar Martínez is an authority on the criminal Mara gangs, having researched how they operate in Central America for more than 20 years, how they have recruited people, how they have constituted a second power and even a second government in some states with its own regime of rules and punishments. And while today the gangs are losing influence in El Salvador, we find that they are being replaced by the state mafia, writes Oscar Martínez. And he also sounds the alarm in a more international context about the figure of the strong man, the iron fist returning to Latin America. We have a name in Spanish for this man. They're mostly men. Caudillos, the caudillo, which includes figures ranging from Bolsonaro through Nicaragua's Daniel Ortega and El Salvador's Bukele. And now we have another situation, just very close, Guatemala. Guatemala seems to be going on that direction too. It's a neighbor country of Mexico. One of the most recognized newspapers in the country, in Guatemala, El Periódico, had to close because of government persecution some months ago. And the upcoming elections, next week, in a few days, show candidates that celebrate the controversial measures of Bukele and candidates that want to be like Bukele. All these rulers are far from democracy and dislike its most essential features, such as checks and balances, the rule of law, and due process. They are bothered by criticism and bothered when the dark and corrupt way in which they handle public affairs is revealed. We have to support courageous journalists whose integrity has been able to counter the government's disinformation and propaganda through accurate journalism. And that is Oscar Martínez, accurate journalism. In countries where a mistake can cost you your very life, your job, your reputation, Oscar Martínez is synonymous with investigative journalism of the highest order, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.